Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest, Belén Moyano. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, she's a Buenos Aires, Argentina native who has tackled off-Broadway, regional theater premieres, and more. Currently, you can catch her as a Fate on the national tour of the Tony Award-winning show Hadestown. Please welcome Belén Moyano. How have you been doing? Because this past year and a half before Hadestown tour started, it was kind of rough for a lot of people in the arts and theater, etc.
Yeah, it was crazy. My husband and I, we were in New York when the pandemic started, and then halfway through, we decided that we needed outdoor space. So we went to Vermont, and then we went to Maryland for some time, or Pennsylvania, and then we went to Arizona for a couple months, and then we went back to Maryland. And so we were kind of hopping around from place to place. Yeah,
all over the place.
Very, yeah. And we ended up selling all our things. So now we kind of have our car, which is exciting and crazy at the same time. But yeah.
It was a crazy year, and everyone had to kind of adjust to it. We're like, okay, this is gonna last 2 weeks. Great, everything's gonna be back to normal in 2 weeks. And I was that optimistic person that's like, yeah, it's really gonna be 2 weeks.
Yeah. Where were you when the pandemic started?
I was in Los Angeles. And then it took me 4 or 5 months to figure out that it wasn't going to be a short-term thing, and that I should probably just go home to my family in Texas.
Okay. Is where you are now?
Yeah, I'm in Dallas, Texas right now, and actively interviewing for jobs in Los Angeles again.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to Dallas. I think it's the next leg of our tour. Yes. And then we'll be in LA. So we'll find you at some point.
Yes. I'm so excited. I'm the biggest Hadestown lover ever. My parents are too. I got them into it.
Oh, that's amazing.
But okay, so I want to get into theater. Mm-hmm. Have you always known that you wanted to be a theater performer?
Not at all. There are moments, and I've told a couple of my castmates that if you ever see me gloss over on stage when I'm standing there and I have to be attentive as to what's going on, sometimes I go to this headspace of, what am I doing here? I never imagined myself doing this for a living. I never imagined myself not having a home, things like that, right, that are a little crazy. But I started doing theater when I was 13 at a children's theater company with some friends. They invited me and I was like, I'll try it. And at that point, my other artistic outlet was orchestra. I played the violin in orchestra and I loved it. And so I was like, I want to keep that, but I'll try this thing on the side. And then it continued. I just kept doing show after show. I got a little addicted, as we do with theater. You get the theater bug and then you can't leave. And so I went to college actually for engineering, which is crazy.
Goodness.
Yeah. And then as an outlet, I decided to do they were doing Susical at the university. And I was like, I'll audition. I'm kind of not feeling this engineering thing, seeing if I'm vibing with it. I auditioned. I ended up getting cast as a starring, which made a bunch of theater people mad, people within the theater department at the university. They're like, why?
Wait.
Yeah, where did she come from? And then after that, one of the heads of the music department came up to me and asked why I wasn't doing art as a degree. And I was like, I don't think artists make money. And I need to do that for myself if you ever want to try. And so after a semester and a half roughly of doing engineering, I switched over to music therapy and then vocal performance. And then was the journey I took.
Oh my goodness. Engineering is so different from theater too. Were you like into engineering in high school, or like was it just
No,
something you're like, I guess I'll try this? Like if
yeah.
I'm not gonna
I
do
mean,
that's
I
cool.
loved calculus. What got me in was I loved math. And it's interesting because music and math are so they're so similar actually. And so it makes sense that my brain would be drawn to both of those things. But then there was a lot of physics in engineering that I just wasn't into. So
I mean, engineering, my brain would not be able to comprehend that at all.
no,
I would be like,
well,
no,
and bless
I
everybody that does it.
I can never. I can never. What was the first theater show you saw that made you really fall in love with theater and the arts?
Oh, that's such a good question. The first show I ever saw, I will never forget. I was 12 years old, and it was a children's production of The Wizard of Oz. Um, so I would
Aw.
say that would have been the start. But I really fell in love with theater. I must have been 15, and I heard the Aida soundtrack for the first time. Yep.
Yes.
And I would joke, I mean, I joke to this day that Heather Headley taught me how to sing because I would try to mimic her voice, um, was what I did. Yeah, so that Aida, I guess.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so sad that that tour got like postponed and pushed because I was so excited to see it on tour.
Yeah.
Finally, I've never seen it live, so
Me neither, actually. I've never seen a production live.
but hopefully it gets rescheduled because I would love to see that performed live.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So you mentioned playing violin, and I also saw on your resume you've played a couple other instruments. Do you think that that's helped you as a theater performer?
Uh, it's helped me in the last maybe 2 to 3 years, but within the span of like the 10 years I've done theater professionally, I've never had the opportunity to play an instrument on stage. So it's very recent. I think I mean, since once, I would say a turning point
Yeah.
for actor musicians. Since that moment, it's become more and more of a like, great, you play an instrument, let's see how you go. Yeah, but before then, no one ever asked me, which is fine.
Really? I'm trying to think of the shows that have like people on stage playing instruments and also acting, singing besides Hadestown. I think Come From Away. Yeah.
Come, yes, has some musicians. Yep.
Yeah.
And
And
then
so,
I just recently did a new show called American Mariachi, which had us playing, and I got to play my violin there as well. Um,
ooh.
and I'm trying to think, yeah, once. And then there's new shows coming out. My fiddle teacher, she's incredible. She just did a new production out in Colorado that they're hoping to kind of push forward. I can't remember the name of it right now, but um, yeah, they're coming, and
Yeah.
people are writing them, which
There's
is great.
more. There's
Yeah,
more and more, and it's super impressive to see people do like double tasking on stage is just mind blowing to me as an audience member. When someone's doing more than one thing at the same time, whether it's like acting and singing at the same time, like even like that's just mind blowing. Or like dancing and singing, playing an instrument and singing. Like what?
and then you do all three. You dance, you
Right.
sing, and you play at the same time, and you're like, my brain.
Right. Exactly. And I'm just sitting in the audience like, what? How do they do this? What goes through their brain?
I mean, it's a lot of hours. I would
Yeah,
come home during Hadestown rehearsals. I'd come home, and my husband witnessed all of it. I would just back and forth try to figure out the steps while playing at the same time because it is like
yeah, I was
this,
gonna say it's exactly like that.
very much so.
So you're from Argentina, I saw.
Mhm.
Did you do theater in Argentina, or had you seen like theater shows there?
No, I mean, we lived in Buenos Aires, which is the capital of Argentina, but as a kid, it wasn't something that I ever thought of
Yeah.
taking us to. I don't know. And there wasn't a lot of opportunities either. There's one really big opera house where they do the big shows, but it's so expensive for just regular people to go see anything. Yeah. So my mom always says that had we not come to the US, I probably would have never found the arts. I played the piano. Actually, when I was 6, my mom put me in piano in Argentina at I was taught by nuns because it was at a monastery.
Oh,
And when I only did it for 6 months, and then my parents ran out of money. Essentially, they're like, we have to budget. We can't afford this anymore. And so they took me out, and they said the day they took me out, the nuns cried because they were like, no, your daughter has talent. What are you doing? I can't afford it anymore. So when we moved to the US when I was 9, my mom immediately bought me a violin and she was like, you're going to play this. And I was like, okay.
okay.
Yeah. Even though I
Okay,
wanted to play
sure.
the cello, and I still don't let her forget that to this day. I'm like, I would have played the cello had I had the chance, but
She's like, no, that's too big, probably. Like,
yes,
I don't want you carrying that in my car.
no, that's literally what she said. She's like, if you're going to walk to school every day, you need something smaller. And I was like,
Yeah, that seems like a parent thing. I think my cousin wanted to play the cello, and my mom was like, does she realize how big that thing is?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But the cello's still one of the most beautiful instruments. So
Yes.
someday I'll learn it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, goals.
And play it on stage too.
Why not?
Yeah. While doing all the things.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a new musical that you worked on, and I also saw that you were in a musical in like 2019ish. That's a new musical called
Yes.
Assistance.
Yeah. I did that off Broadway.
Yeah, what's it like developing a musical and like being in a musical from like during its beginning stages and kind of like helping the musical like get off its feet and being in front of a crowd for the first time?
This is one of the most beautiful questions, I think. I I get so excited. I'm like, watching new shows start from the ground up is one of the most rewarding experiences. I think when I started performing professionally, that's all I wanted to do. It was my goal. And so when I moved to New York, I immediately started kind of putting my hands where I could, because that sounds weird. Um, and I met so many writers and people who had visions and dreams. And I'm very much a maker. I don't know if you've ever taken the Adobe Creatives test. I'm trying to remember what it's fully
Like the
called.
like the well, no, not the like the like tests that like tell you like what like what you're good at or like what career path kind of
Kind
or
of. It's all about your creativity, and it's got 9, no, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think 8 different types of creatives that you could be. So it gives you like you're either a producer, you're a visionary, you're I'm trying to think of the other ones. I'm a maker, and I love grabbing people's thoughts and ideas and making something out of it is my my greatest joy. And so, yeah, shows where I get to sit in the room and give my input. And not only that, but they're catering it to my voice because sometimes people write things, and especially if it's male composers, for example, they don't really know the female voice oftentimes. So they write very high, and you have to tell them that's impossible. We have to keep it at this range. So working in that sense and getting to have a voice has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I also married a composer. And
oh
so, yeah, so my life is literally watching him create. He writes musical theater as well, and so watching his creations come forth
come to life.
is so rewarding as well. And getting to sing some of his demos, getting to advocate for material that not only are they powerful stories he's telling and other composers are telling, but creation of diversity and seeing more representation on stage and more diverse stories.
Yes, and like new stories come to life.
Yeah.
Like there's so many revivals which we love,
Love.
but also like new shows that have never been done before is just like so beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, a show like Hadestown, where in development for so many years, has seen so many iterations, was, you know, not really designed for a giant stage, but has become that.
Yes.
Yeah. And the types of people that it attracts and the people that it brings to the theater. I think there's a lot of people who come see our show who maybe would never see a musical, but because it's a little different, they
But
come.
but the word of mouth with Hadestown has become like this thing where people are like, it's almost become like, oh, people talk about it like as much as Hamilton.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's like a household musical name,
Yes.
you know,
It's
which
amazing.
which like it's so well deserved. So well deserved.
Truly.
But that's so cool that you've done like how many original musicals have you done now?
A handful. I
Everyone's
would say
dream.
like more than five, but I mean the one that got developed was the one off Broadway, and then there's been like two others that have kind of been developed, but everything else that I when I lived in New York, I would do a new reading of a show weekly. I just loved being
Yeah.
engaged in that community. Yeah.
That's everyone's like everyone I talk to, I always ask like, what's your dream role? And everyone's like, I want to originate something. I want to originate a character, bring a show to life. So like
Yeah.
you're living the dream. You're living every
Really
actor's dream.
interesting. Uh,
So I want to get into Hadestown. What was your audition process like for Hadestown, and what had you heard about Hadestown before going into audition for the show?
I saw Hadestown at the Tony Awards. I think that was my first introduction to the show. Hadn't listened to the soundtrack, had friends who were obsessed with it, but I for some reason had never listened to it. So I saw their performance at the Tony Awards, and my husband and I got a ticket to see the show roughly like 5 days after. We were like it was the last seat
Like the
in,
balcony.
in the balcony. Yes. And it was so beautiful. After that, because I played violin and I also played the accordion, not play. But at
Yeah.
the time, I also played the accordion. I was like, I could do any of the roles on stage. I saw myself immediately within the show, so I waited for that opportunity to come. And we had auditions February 2020. They called me in for Broadway. They were working on some replacement stuff. And so the team saw me. I think I went through 5 rounds of callbacks then. And in the last callback, I got to meet Aeneas and Rachel and Liam, and I got to work with them in the room, which I was like, cool. Yeah. Dream made. Thank you for what you wrote. I'm here. If you need me, I'm available. Let me know.
Yes.
And then after that, they were also auditioning for the tour, but they only saw me. I think they initially saw me for the tour, but then they had some replacement stuff, so it turned into. But then the pandemic happened.
Yep.
And I heard nothing, which is how life goes. So come 2021, this last, I would say March or April, I got they asked me to send in a tape of me playing my violin, singing, and then doing, I think I had to do chips. And so I sent that in, and then they called me back for one of the swing tracks because I could potentially play everything. And I got to work on the Eurydice material and the Fates and the Workers, which was
Oh my goodness.
so fun. Yeah.
That's so much.
It was 32 pages. So it was a lot. Yeah. And it was through Zoom. So we were currently in Maryland at a friend's house, and we set up our little camera display, and we were there, and it was a good time.
The whole setup.
The whole setup. And I got the offer 3 days later. It went to my spam folder. which scared me a little bit. So I was like, did I miss it? But I check my spam folder often now. Um, yeah, and they offered me Fate 1, and I'm grateful. So that was the journey.
What was your reaction when you heard that you got cast in the show?
I called my mom,
You're like,
who doesn't know anything about the show, of course. And she was like, that sounds great. I'm excited for you. And I was
she's like,
like, Mom, yeah, it really is. And of course, my husband was in the room, so he got to. I keep pointing this way. He's over there doing his work. Yeah, and yeah, I was a little shocked, and I almost because we're still in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
It didn't feel real, and even when we started rehearsals, it didn't quite feel real because we hadn't left New York City. It was like anything could happen at any point. And I think you try to protect yourself as best you can. But the moment it really hit me was our last day. For some reason, our last day at the Kennedy Center 3 weeks ago now, that's when I was like, oh,
this is weird.
I'm in Hadestown. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you ever like gone on the website, on their like website and like looked and been like, oh, like my name's there. It says like Tony Award winning musical, like somewhere on the website. No big deal, I guess.
Yeah, no big deal. Someone when they first announced the tour cast, someone sent me the Wikipedia page, and my name was on the Wikipedia page. And I was like,
you're like, I made it. Yes. Bucket list.
Bucket list. Thank you, Wikipedia. Done. Next.
Yes. Yes. So, what was the rehearsal process like for Hadestown, and how quickly after you got cast in the show officially did you begin rehearsals?
Yeah, I think I got cast beginning of June. I went to American Mariachi in Arkansas, and I had to leave a week early because we started rehearsals end of August. So my understudy took over, and she was incredible. So I flew from Arkansas to New York. Literally, I had a Sunday matinee, flew 2 hours later, and then started rehearsal at 10 a.m. the next day. So I got to New York at 3 a.m. It was not the best day of my life.
You're like living off like coffee or caffeine or something.
Truly, I was like living on a prayer, going to rehearsal. It's going to be great. So I think the first couple of days were still a hate because I was tired. And then we rehearsed in New York for 4 weeks, which was a long time. But I think they added an extra week because of COVID reasons. And so we just had more time, which was lovely. And rehearsal wise, we started with music. We had a full sing through by the end of week 1. And then we started blocking. Rachel at the time was still putting up the Broadway company. And so that's what we didn't really see her first week. So once she was done with that and they opened, we got to see their invited dress, which was so beautiful.
And it's like the cast coming together and meeting each other, the whole
Hadestown
family.
Yes, we met them. It was so lovely, but we had to meet 6 feet apart, so we were a little sad because we wanted to hug. We had that feeling, but we couldn't.
Kind of like Red Rover, the like game you play on the playground when you're standing like 6 feet apart from each other, or
Yes,
like more, like 10 feet apart from each other during that game.
Oh no, that's true because you need space to run.
Yeah.
But yes, that. Yeah, we got to see them. We got to see the dress rehearsal, and then we did as much as we could until the last day, and then we teched for 2 weeks in Schenectady. So we went upstate, and we finally got to be on the turntable, which changed a lot. Really, it changed everything within the room. But yeah, that was kind of the rehearsal process. Trying to think if there was anything we learned the show.
And did seeing the show live help with the rehearsal process and help like pull the rehearsal process together near the end? Like, did you all like get inspired? Like, I know you all like the tour cast, it's different. It's going to be different. We love live theater and it's different than the Broadway cast. So you all don't want to copy like what they're doing, and no one wants to see a carbon copy of what they're doing on Broadway. But did you all like get inspiration from them?
I think so. I mean, we saw what their story looks like, and our story on tour is, yes, completely different than what they're telling. It's the same layout, but
Yeah.
the humans that we put in the story, yeah, make it so different. Um, I would say sometimes we were set. We were told, do you remember on Broadway they did this thing? We're not doing that thing, is what we were told often, because we don't have certain set elements that they do. Because they're in a set space, they can have
Yeah.
the elevator in the middle, they can have all sorts of things added to their show. But because we travel, our set is slightly smaller and has less of those elements. And so there was a lot of refiguring out what that looks like, to still to tell the story in the way that it needs to be told. So yeah, a lot of, you're not do that, and we're like, great.
Yeah, and it's
Let me
live
try.
theater. So like live theater, I was saying earlier today, it's always different. It's like it's never going to be exactly the same, even if you see the same cast. It's like the audience is part of like
Yes.
how it changes from day to day.
Yeah,
That's what's so special about it.
truly. And a story like this, where we tell the story all the time, and we're going to tell it again and again and again. And something really beautiful that Rachel Chavkin said in the room, which I thought was mind blowing, was that, at the end of the show, when Orpheus and Eurydice come out again, and we see them one last time before the button, she said, technically, it could be someone completely new. It doesn't have to be Orpheus and Eurydice that you saw for the last 2 hours. When we tell it again, she said, maybe in a different version, in a different universe, you know, two other people from our company come out as Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a little mind blowing, in that this story can be told through whoever is available and
Yeah.
whoever wants to share that of themselves. I think is so powerful. And it doesn't happen very often. It's not every day that you get told, like, you could do it all. For the most part, you're, as an actor, you're kind of put in a box, and they look at what you can do and they say, okay, this is what you're gonna do. Whereas Hadestown, I think what makes this so revolutionary is that we see what you can do, but we also see, it's like how the world could be instead of
Yes.
just how the world is.
Like,
Yeah.
yep, like the line in the show. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so true, and it's such a like it really the show really makes you think when you go and see it. You're like thinking, and you're thinking about how the stage is so beautiful, the lighting's so beautiful, and then about how the story is so beautiful and the lines are so beautiful.
Yeah. And it's so cool that in this show we get to turn to the audience,
It,
um, 3 times. That's what I call it. I call it beginning, middle, and end. We have a moment with the audience where we always check in, because it is communal. It's like we all come as a
yes,
community, and we share this experience together. And then even at the end of the show with cups, um, when they even kind of turn off our mics. It's very much live. Um, we're we're there sharing, like, we all have this experience together. You know, this is how the story went, but now we get to go forth and create something else together as a community, as a nation, as a world, which
yes,
is so cool.
yeah. The cups at the end kind of like breaks the fourth wall for
Yeah.
sure, which is beautiful.
Mhm.
So, did the rehearsal process, do you think, create a special bond with the cast that has helped the chemistry on stage?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And especially because we're each other's families for a year. Um, it's definitely been really beautiful to watch people's relationships grow. We all have like little pockets and groups, but we're a community, and it's really easy to bring everybody together and like have a good time together.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often. It's like you always have one person maybe that's maybe not, but in this company everybody is just so giving and so talented. I'm in awe, and I get to watch them now. We're starting to put in understudies and swings and covers, and just getting to see their version of the character and how it works with what we've created is just so incredible. Weird.
You're like, I get to work with these people.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It must be like a mind-blowing thing to like, I bet the whole cast every day is just like, wow, I'm like filled with, I'm in a room with all these talented people.
Yeah. It's very humbling. I'm very humbled every day to be there.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, okay. So what was opening night of tour like for the cast?
So I laugh because what was opening night? We had like 3 opening nights. No one could decide what our opening night was. Yeah, where did we open? No one knows.
We don't know.
We don't know, which was fun, I think. We opened in Greenville, quote unquote. We opened. And then we opened in DC, quote unquote. And we just keep opening. I just think we're going to open for the rest of forever. Yeah, but our company management is so good at, because of COVID, we can't have like an actual opening party with people and such, but they've made us feel so at home and welcomed, where they will, for one night, they'll like have drinks available and they'll say, still socially distanced, but like you can be in the room together and celebrate. And we usually have a toast with the producers. So it's not normal, but it's something. And we opened.
Oh, hey, and then when things gradually get back to normal, or to where like it's safe to gather and like celebrate with everyone not socially distanced, like y'all can have your, I don't know what number opening night.
Yes, we can actually have the party that we deserve.
Yes, exactly. And it's going to be epic.
It's going to be amazing.
And that's definitely a good pun. The epic pun. So I recently went back to New York and watched Hadestown. I actually saw it 3 times because there were a bunch of understudies on within the time I was in New York. So I wanted to see it as many times as I could. And I noticed that the Fates, not only are they singing, playing instruments, and acting, but like, and like doing choreography too, basically on stage and blocking, but you all are like acting with your face, like your whole face, like eyes, everything, like the facial expressions that I noticed when I was watching the Fates perform on Broadway. I was like, okay, you can like, they don't even have to say anything because they're just acting with their face and like you get it. Is that a difficult technique to learn?
That's a good question. The technique, now I'm asking myself, because I've never struggled acting with my face. I'm very expressive as a human being. So for me, it's more like actually tapping into my joy. So I know that I am joyful when the performance is reading in the way that it needs to. Like I'm truly within myself. If that makes any sense, that's very woo-woo. No, it's a lot of this, and especially once you take away the hair and once you put on the feathers and you have the costume, there is that element of what are you saying, even with your looks, and the way you're looking at people on stage. It's very status driven too, where the Fates are goddesses, and so we were told in rehearsal, like, just remember your status. But remember also that the Fates enjoy that status and that they'll always like want to get their hands in. They're a little above it, but they love to like get involved. So it's a lot of that as well.
Yes, and the like involvement, like with like the Eurydice scene, like when like during Chips Are Down, the involvement like really like comes through, and like you all like interact with Eurydice and like and all the characters, and kind of y'all are really a big part in how the story comes across.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if the fates weren't there, I don't think the story would end as a tragedy. And so because we tell you from the very top, like this is a tragedy, we have to ensure that
That
it
it's
ends
gonna
that
be,
way.
yeah.
Which is like both, there are moments when one of our Orpheus understudies went on, his name's Chibeze, just the loveliest human, but he's also really, really sweet in life. And like, we love him. I love him. Like, I look at him and I'm just like, you're the cutest. One of the fates and I, Shay and I, just kept coming off stage. Whenever we come off stage, we don't come off stage very often, but when we did, we kept turning to each other and being like, I feel so bad that I have to be so mean to him. Like, he is such a sweetheart. How could I do this to him? And then we turn back around, get back on stage, and just be so mean to him.
Like apologizing to him backstage and stuff.
Yeah, being like, we're sorry, we really don't mean it. Yeah, so it's an interesting role because you both get to enjoy it, but then there are moments where you're like, I as a human would never treat anybody this way. But when it has been written and when your destiny has been written, that's what the fates do. They decide people's destinies.
They get in their heads.
You have to ensure that it happens. And the crazy thing is that even us as goddesses, it's like we still influence Hades. We influence all the other gods on stage. So we're usually in the background, but we're there kind of moving the pieces together and puppeteering a little bit.
Like
which I
chess.
think is, it's so interesting. And every night I find a new moment where I'm like, ooh, we made that happen. Or I see there's a specific choreography the other night where we're doing this thing and we're just in the back doing this thing with our hands. And all of us are like, why are we doing this thing? And then we realize Hermes is saying at the time, you know, the storm came, talking about the storm. And I was like, we're literally making the storm is what we're doing in the background. And that added another level to our power and just how we run the story a little bit, where there is decisions, like the characters in the show have to make those choices and they have to make it on their own accord. So we're always asking questions. We're never telling them what to do. We're just saying, what are you going to do? Which I think is so interesting.
It's so interesting because there's so many working pieces in the show that it's like, it's genius. Everything is a working piece, every little bitty thing. There's so many Easter eggs.
It's incredible. And especially when you get such a smart director like Rachel, such a smart choreographer like David Newman, like you seeing how they work together in the space, and you're like, they took Aeneas's work and then they add all of this to it to create the world, which I think is incredible.
It really, really is.
Yeah.
So you all, as fates, you all are harmonizing with each other the whole show. Was it difficult to work out how you harmonize? How long did it take you all to perfect the harmonizing on stage?
Well, we were all actually shocked when we got in the room together on day 2 to sing some Fate material. We were so surprised at how well our voices blended, to the point where we were like, we did an audition together. We all auditioned via, like, they saw us via Zoom the last time they saw us. And then they said within themselves, like, the 3 of them are going to sound amazing.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Yeah, it's amazing to work with, I call them my Fate sisters, and to take their energies and their vocal qualities and what they're so good at, and to be able to add to that. I think instead of like a working to fit the pieces together, it was truly just like a puzzle piece next to each other, the picture as a whole. Yeah, it's been really cool. I think vocally with the trio is just the mixing, because we go from house to house and every theater sounds different. Our voices will carry differently as well. So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, is just figuring out especially for the sound department, mix between the trio so that you hear what you need to hear. Yeah.
And it's different because it's different from Broadway, because Broadway, they're in the same theater every night. So
Yeah,
they don't
you
really
can
have to
really
like
cater to
worry
that.
about how like a different sound from city to city, because they're just in New York at
Yeah.
at one
Well,
theater.
and they take sound check very seriously, and we need to, because it changes so often. And we want people in the audience to be able to hear what the show should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's so important to hear all three fates in their voices, like as solo voices too.
Yeah,
Like singing,
right.
like them singing together, and then as you all as just solos.
And that's the cool thing about the Fates, is that um, Rachel also told us in the room, you are rock stars. You're like three Lady
Yes.
Gagas put together. So you have your moments where you can like gaga, 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 but there is that beautiful memory of it where you come together and you work as a unit. So you're like the three-headed dog.
Yes.
What's that? I always think of that serpent or that beast in Hercules, the
Oh,
Hydra.
yes. Okay. Yeah.
Like when you cut off a head, three heads come out. That's kind of how we function, where
That's
every head has its own thoughts and its own way of doing things, but we work as a unit because we have one body, is kind of the idea.
yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a moment in your life where you wished that you had someone like a fate helping you decide what to do and what path to take?
Every day.
Like literally
You
every
always
day.
want someone. Yes. I'm like, you always want someone to tell you what your destiny is and where you're supposed to go, because making decisions is hard.
Uh, yes. Um, I,
Yeah.
but you want someone to tell you like in a way that maybe doesn't end in a heartbreaking way.
Yes. Yeah. I think about like when you said, do you have one moment? I was like, yeah, like when I graduated from college and I was like, what am I gonna do with my life? You wish someone would tell you, oh, this is what's coming. So maybe these are the steps to take. And you're like, oh great, I can do that. But once you leave school, I think that's one of the hardest things of going from being a student to then being shoved into the real world, is that there's not a lot of structure and you have to create structure for yourself. And no one teaches you that, or maybe the warning signs are there, but you don't really. Um, so yeah, you wish that a fate would be there to ask you the questions that you needed, like, what are you going to do with this thing? You could do this thing, or you could do this thing.
And this is
Instead of
how it's
like,
gonna end up.
yeah, instead of there being like a million choices, the world's greater. Wow. Um, yeah.
Yes, you're like every day when you wake up, there's a million choices you can make that could affect your life differently. It's like the show If Then. Oh
Yes, it's just like if then.
my god. Oh, that show hits hard. So, do you have a favorite song to sing in Hadestown? The Fates parts are some of my favorite parts in the whole show. So, I can't really pick, but do you have a personal favorite?
I do. My absolute favorite is Way Down 2. So it's the
Ooh.
beginning, the top of Act 2. I think some of the juiciest fate material, and it's so overlooked. Like when I went into the show, I was like, oh, Chips, like Chips is the number. Chips is incredible, and like it's actually the most thing I've ever done in my whole life. Um, but Way Down Hadestown 2, the reprise is so fun. Vocally, there's so many opportunities for fates to. We all have solos all over the song, so we get to make different choices depending on Eurydice and what she's doing. There's also some gorgeous time we're going, Mr. Hades set you free. There's moments, and
Oh
every
my
night
god.
I'm always excited when we get to that song. I'm like, I'm gonna enjoy this.
Yes. I mean, that is a good song for the Fates, come to think
Yes.
of it. And I feel like maybe people don't realize it because it's like such like an like because it's the whole cast really.
Yeah.
singing in that
Very
song, so they're like, okay, it's not like a Fates number, just specifically a Fates number.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition in it too, where you see Eurydice come out from Hades' office for the first time. You find out that she's dead. Like, that's a big
Yeah.
thing. Spoiler alert, she's dead. Um, should have said spoiler first.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, we'll add that in. And yeah, so you're getting a lot of information, and it leads to Flowers, which is such a gorgeous number. But it's so fun.
How do you not like? I mean, how far off stage are you during Flowers, and how do you not like come back on stage sobbing every night?
Honestly, during rehearsal, I would cry often. Flowers made me cry. All I've Ever Known made me cry. And then the moment that would always get me, and it's still a moment because I'm actually on stage, I have to like ensure that my feelings are somewhere else for the time being, is when Hades sings La 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 for the first time and the flower appears in Epic 3, or during Epic 3 before Epic 3 dance. That moment always gives me chills. I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah, you're like, don't cry, don't cry.
Cry, and I have.
I have to act.
And you just, especially because I'm wearing so much makeup and I start crying, I'm like, no.
The makeup just comes like streaming down.
It's a little crazier. No, but then it's really good because I get to then play my violin for Epic 3 dance, and then we kind of go off stage in our version, which is great. So I get to like just put myself together.
You're like, I'm good. I wasn't crying. It was allergies.
Yes, my lash got in my eye. I'm okay.
I'm okay. A stick got in my eye somewhere.
Yep.
Random stick or something, or like, I don't know, something. Not crying. So how do you work on staying healthy on the road when you're not only performing 8 times a week, but you're also traveling? And I know you all have just gotten started on the tour, so you all haven't been to many places yet, but I'm sure you all already have like techniques or tricks.
Yeah, I think every person in our cast does something different. For me, it's about sleep. I actually just bought a new pillow because I carry my own pillow. I don't like hotel pillows, but I've noticed that my pillow isn't serving me anymore. So you do things like that. I have a roller, I have a yoga mat, I have my tennis balls that I roll on. We have PT. That's something that's provided for us, physical therapy, which we take advantage of because yes, especially show 7 is always so difficult every week because your body's like, for me, I'm not used to being in heels. I've been in heels for so many hours doing these crazy things with my body. You need to care for yourself. But I'm a creature of routine. I love having things that I do every morning that don't change. So I wake up, I drink a lot of water in the morning. I always exercise, even when I'm not feeling super well. I find some way to move because I need to get my body moving way before the show happens. And then eating well. It is hard when you're on the road. This here in Columbus, we have a kitchen we don't usually have. So it's a blessing. Things that you take for granted, you're like, actually, I really love having a full fridge and like being able to grocery shop and like plan out my meals instead of eating out every single day.
I mean, especially when you all are ending shows at like what, like 10:30, 11?
Yeah, 11, and everything's closed.
Yeah, except for like the fast food places, like the burger places and stuff.
Only McDonald's is open.
So you don't have many choices.
Yeah. We start, there are moments where you have to like Uber Eats during mission because you're like, this place is going to close and I need food at the end of the show. And you just figure out which.
Like timing, when is intermission? How long do I have to get like ready for act 2 and order food?
Yep. All all
A
the things.
lot of things, a lot of
A
things.
lot of things. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, you get to see new cities and you meet new people and you like getting to explore is so amazing. But the hard part of it is really caring for yourself and being mindful. So yeah, we take it easy on travel days. Our company is really, really good about getting us direct flights and just making sure that we are cared for. And then also understanding that, like, I have understudies. And so there are people who are ready to go on for me if I am not feeling well, or if I truly need a personal day or an emotional day. Um, we have that backup, which is incredible.
How tricky is it as a performer? Speaking of understudies, who I like to say they're I like to I heard it called Wonder Studies when I was during like Wicked at Pantages, and I was like, "Oh, I like that. Wonder Studies." But how hard is it as a lead to be like, "Okay, this is when I need to call out," and like listen to your body when you need to call out maybe?
It's hard. I think everyone, maybe I should speak for myself. I've definitely gone through that process where this is gonna touch on like the sometimes the inequality within theater, where as an actor, and especially in non-union projects where the union isn't there to help advocate for your rights, you're often told, maybe not directly but indirectly, that we can easily replace you. If you can't do what we ask you to do, you're easily replaced. So that mentality sometimes in theater, that you feel like if you call out, if you care for yourself, they're going to replace you. And so you have to come to terms with the fact that you matter more than anything that is happening on that stage. Storytelling is powerful, but storytelling can't happen without you. And so just being able to separate yourself, first of all, mentally, emotionally, from the production, and saying, this is my job. I switch jobs all the time. Jobs come and go, but this is me, and me for a long time,
Yeah.
and I matter more than that. So you have to make that decision first, and then you have to have those hard conversations with yourself where you're like, can you do what they're asking you to do? If you can't, and it's going to hurt you, and it's going to cause you to, instead of calling out for one night, you have to call out 3 nights, 4 nights, 5 nights, like, time for you. I've yet to call out. There have been moments. Last Sunday when we got to that last show, I was like, help me, help me.
SOS.
I'm so tired. I had actually, I painted the mural in Boston.
I saw that.
It was a huge
Oh
feat.
my
I
goodness. It was
never again will I.
beautiful.
Thank you. It was a great project. I really, really loved making it. I loved being that way, but I didn't see the sunlight for a week,
Oh my goodness.
which took its toll on me. And then also because it was higher than me and I was usually standing, I was painting like this, so my body was just not happy. So at the end of Sunday, last night in Boston, I had a conversation with myself. I was like, hey, you can if you want to. How do you feel? And I gave myself, I said, if in show 7, I can't feel my feet at the end of the night, because sometimes that happens in heels. It's hard.
Like
You
you like
just,
fall
your
asleep
feet
or
are like,
something?
I'm done. Yes.
Yeah.
Then you call out for the next show. And I could feel my feet. So I was like, I'm feeling good. I think I can do it.
Okay.
You just have to ask the hard questions.
Yeah, but like I mean, y'all are standing stationary, like in a stationary place for a lot of the time when you aren't moving around on stage. So I can see that I can see that in heels taking a toll. I can't even walk in heels, so
Oh
like
yeah.
much
Well, and
power.
The Fates on Broadway get to sit a little more than us because we use, maybe I don't want to spoil this in case people come see the show. We always do promos. We use the DeLorean door is what we call it, where the drummer on Broadway hangs out. That's where they are. Our drummer is actually off stage, which we're a little sad about.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, we love him. Anthony's incredible, but we're sad. We wish he was with us on stage. But this door opens, but the Fates stools are right in front of the door. And so halfway through act one, we have to strike our stools and take them off stage. Whereas on Broadway, the stools remain.
Yes,
So
yes.
the Fates get to sit a little bit more on Broadway than we do, which is definitely something I'm jealous about.
Like, I want to sit.
I want to sit, but you're like, I got this. I can do this.
Yeah, gotta tell this story. So, how hard is it to learn choreography on a turntable and blocking on a turntable for the show?
Tech was interesting. The first bit on the turntable was scary. We definitely ran things slowly, and then the table sped up to where it needed to be sometimes, depending.
Don't fall.
Well, yes, the hardest part, and it's still something that we have every single night. And Way Down too, we have to hop on the table as it's moving really quickly, but we have to make it so subtle, hopping, and then we're standing still. Usually when you're hopping on it and you get to continue with the momentum, it's a piece of cake. You're like, I could do this every day. I do it at an airport on those moving platforms. But when you have to stand on it and then immediately be frozen is really difficult. So I'm learning. I now have become friends with these tiny muscles, which are like right behind your hips. They're your stabilizers. They're so tiny, and they are fully activated while you're on the turntable doing things. So it was a challenge, but it's fun. There are nights when the fog is thick.
Oh yeah, the fog.
The fog.
There's
the
as
fog.
I said, working pieces of the show, and it makes it tricky for you all on stage.
Yes, yeah, and especially doubt comes in. You have very low visibility because the lights are very dark. The lights are dark. The lights are off, and the fog is thick. And so we have to jump on the table from a platform while it's moving, and there's so much fog, and you just have to trust. And you're like, I'm trusting today.
You're like, hopefully this goes well.
Hope this goes well. But for the most part, we're safe. I mean, we've tested everything. So, and if you end up falling, I've fallen once, and it was fine. We just get up and we keep going. So
yeah, I mean, it happens.
It happens.
Things happen to the best of us. I mean, every night for me, it'd be if I had to learn how to get on a turntable, it'd be very interesting for everyone to watch.
No, but you'd get it, and you would love it.
Questionable. I'm pretty clumsy. I would probably fall 30 times at least.
We have.
It'd be bad. So, what do you think makes Hadestown such a beloved show? Because people love the soundtrack. It's very popular on Broadway. It's Tony Award-winning show, and I mean, this tour is getting a lot of talk.
Mm-hmm. I think what makes this show so special is first the people, the writers, the individuals who created it make it so special. But the fact that every character on stage is relatable. Even Hades, there are moments where I'm 100% Hades. I understand what he's going through. I understand why it's so difficult. And that's what makes it so human. I just think when we can see ourselves on stage and when we maybe live through moments of our own lives on stage, that's when a show really connects. The show is also so important. It talks about climate change. It talks about immigration. It talks about humanity and hierarchies and society and how we treat each other and how we could treat ourselves as well. There's so many beautiful themes in the show, and I think depending on when you come see it. So Becca, you've seen the show many times now. I'm guessing that when you've seen it, it's been different.
Every time it's different. I've seen a different cast, a different combination of cast members every time.
So yeah. And I think also the way in which we come to the theater. Like if, sorry, my internet's unstable. If I'm down, am I still there?
Yeah, you're still here.
Okay, perfect.
It's a little like Zoom is crazy.
Zoom does its things.
Yeah, Zoom does its things.
I'm saying if I saw the show 5 years ago, I think my experience would have been very different than when I actually saw the show, and then when I'm seeing the show now. We change and grow, and the beauty with Hadestown in that we tell it again and again in seasons. Well, we're all in different seasons of our lives, and so for everybody, it's going to hit differently. And I think there's something for everybody who comes to see the show.
Yes, I mean, I feel like if I saw it like as a child, I'd be like, oh, Hades is the bad guy for sure. But like when you're watching it from an adult perspective, you are like, okay, like I can see some, like at times I can relate to Hades in this moment.
Yeah. And in my mind, whenever I think of the show, I'm like, if Orpheus is the protagonist, then to me, Eurydice is the antagonist. The antagonist doesn't mean villain. Antagonist is just the person who creates the most conflict with the protagonist. And so you're like, if Orpheus's story changes so much, it's because of her, and it's because of her choices. And whereas if you saw Eurydice as a protagonist, then Orpheus is 100% the antagonist. And so, like, there isn't a villain in Hadestown. Maybe the Fates could be considered the villain. Like, I'll put myself in that category. But that's the beautiful thing about the story. It's like, it's not about good or bad. It's about humanity and how messy humanity is. And like, there's so much gray. There's so much to question. There's a lot of doubt. But how can we find hope and peace and joy amidst everything that's happening? Which
and
is so
much, yeah. And how much like one little bitty decision can affect so many different people.
Yeah. It's incredible.
So how would you convince people to come see Hadestown on tour, whether they haven't seen the show before or they've already seen it on Broadway? How would you convince people to come see this tour cast?
Ooh, convincing. How would I convince someone to come see the show?
You're like, gotta step into the Fates minds.
I guess. Part of me is always like, I think people are drawn to stories, again, at different points of their life. And so if Hadestown looks even remotely interesting to you, check it out. I think I'm a firm advocate of like, you learn through anything and everything that you do. I think that's why I play a ton of instruments and I have like weird hobbies, is because all those things make me who I am and add to my work. And so, like, creator especially, or if you consider yourself a person who wants to be creative and wants to make a difference in the world, it's like, why wouldn't you seek out things that question maybe what you've built for yourself, maybe push you in different directions, maybe make you see the world a little bit differently. And I think our company does that really beautifully. Our tour is just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and I get emotional thinking about it. It's just a really cool group of humans telling their related story.
Just the show and everything that comes together on the stage in Hadestown. And I know that there's different things on the staging is kind of different for the tour, but like the staging, the lighting, just everything that comes together to create that whole show is just genius. And I like cannot get over how genius the creative team is of the show.
Truly. Yeah, and I can't wait for you to see our tour.
I mean, my dad keeps sending me like emails and stuff about when it about like the sale and stuff, and I'm like, I'm on the like
You're like,
I'm
I
gonna
already
get the
know.
best seats. I know, but I'm gonna get the best seats. Duh.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
my dad is very excited to see it again. I know.
Oh, I can't wait for your dad to see it
Oh
too.
my God. He saw it with my mom in New York after I saw it, and he also sat in the way up nosebleeds in the balcony.
Amazing.
But and my parents were like, we saw the stage from above, but it was amazing. Like we could see everything.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not really a bad seat, I would
Mm-mm.
say.
No,
Yeah.
there's not a bad seat because you get to see all the elements come together from
Hmm.
wherever you sit.
Yeah.
So, who inspires you in the theater world?
Ooh, who currently inspires me? Um, I've always been inspired, of course, by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes.
Yes, and artistically overall as well, not just in theater. I mean, the fact that he has now moved fully into film
Oh
and
my.
television and is doing all sorts of different kinds of art, I think it's incredible. I've always been so moved by his work. Um, Audra McDonald, I follow her religiously. Cynthia
Such a queen.
Erivo,
Ooh, another
yeah,
queen.
truly unicorns, powerhouses. And also, I think I'm inspired by especially people of color who have gone through really difficult experiences in their life because of racism, because of prejudice, because of how society is built, have been able to continue creating and like making their voices heard. I'm so inspired by activists. My time ride or die is AOC, and it's like if I can be her, if I can even an inkling of her spirit of what she brings to the world, it's like the incredible change that we can create. So those are the artists that inspire me. Joshua Henry currently inspires me
Oh
so much.
goodness.
Truly, just humans out there changing minds. Artists, love them.
Have you seen Tick Tick Boom yet? Have you had time to see it?
No, we're looking. Yeah, we're trying to find a theater nearby to go
Oh,
see it. So hopefully
oh
soon.
my goodness, it's so good. I
I
know
can't.
it's coming to Netflix on Friday, but if you can find a theater where it's playing, definitely go see it in a theater. It's
Okay, 100% will.
amazing. And I've also heard to I've also heard, which is a bonus about Lin-Manuel, that he's super kind and super nice,
That's
which is
so
such a
good.
bonus.
Truly.
I mean, and I was gonna say another thing about Hadestown that's so special is that in every cast that this show has had, there's so much representation on
Mhm.
stage in the
Yeah,
show.
they make an effort, which thank you to
It's beautiful.
Hadestown at large for making an effort. That's all it takes. And I think also, again, being open to anybody can tell the story, anybody, regardless of color, race, sex, gender, ethnicity, they're anybody. Just,
Yes, and it still has the same impact on people.
mhm. Yeah,
Like, no matter if you see this person or this person, it's gonna still have the same impact at the end of the day. You just maybe saw a different person than your friend who saw the show the previous day
yeah.
on stage. If you could be in any Broadway show, what show would it be?
Hamilton.
That's easy. Which character would you play though? You could play any character in the show, let's say.
I would play Burr or Lafayette.
Ah! Yes!
Those are dreams. That's my dream. I want to be Burr or Lafayette.
Oh my god. And you and Kayla from the Broadway cast could both like be in the show as because she wants to play like female Burr.
Yes. Then I'll play her Lafayette.
So, oh my god, we just Well, we have a cast for the future.
Done. Yes, if
Let's
they
do it.
gender,
Let's manifest
they
this.
need to gender bend it. I think it's perfect.
Oh my
So same with
goodness.
Hadestown. We've talked about it in our company. We're like, if Hadestown was gender bent, like it would be beautiful still, and it would work. And it's like just a
I want
party.
to see this. I want to see you two play Lafayette and Burr.
I'm interested.
Yes, it's gonna happen. Hamilton directors or casting directors,
Yes,
please get on it.
I can rap. I promise you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I can show you. Like
I can
I
show
have
you
a video prepared.
right
And,
now. Let me send it.
I mean, and I also saw a cover of you singing Burn online last night,
Oh yes, I forgot that was online.
which is stunning, by the way.
Thank you.
Speaking of Hamilton,
I appreciate it.
you sound stunning singing that song. And I saw Hamilton last night and came home and watched that, and I was like, oh, your
That's
voice.
incredible. Yes.
So good. So how do you work on self-confidence in this industry? Because it is a tough industry. Like, I'd be lying if I said I haven't heard like heart-wrenching stories from people in
Yeah.
the industry about like overcoming difficult obstacles.
Yeah. Well, especially as a woman in the industry where, and in society, you know, we're told we have to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to act a certain way. And it's really hard to shed layers of that.
Yeah.
And especially as you come into theater, yeah, it's really hard to not compare yourself to people who you're like, how are they real? And to remind yourself that you have something to add to it. I would say the way I've worked on it is therapy. Therapy is one of the most incredible things that anybody could ever engage in. My therapist has helped me so much. Even in the short time I've been with her, it hasn't been that long. I've seen my growth through her. And then I think part of it is, again, being able to separate yourself from this. It's like, yeah, I'm an actor, I do theater, but that's not necessarily who I am. I'm Ben, I'm a human, I'm an immigrant, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I have all these other roles that define me and give me strength and courage. And so on days where I find myself, yes, comparing or just feeling just not the best about who I am, it's a reminder of like, there's more. And so finding hobbies, engaging in other things outside of the arts, and always, yeah, finding ways for that also to be incorporated within your art, I think is what I've kind of delved into.
And social media makes it so hard to not compare yourself when you're scrolling on social media on like especially the addictive apps like TikTok, where you're on there for like, even if you don't have an account, you're on there for like hours at a time just
It's so
scrolling through videos. Oh my god, TikTok is so smart. Like, how do they do it? They have my attention for hours.
Yes, I'm really grateful. I don't know if he's appeared on your feed, but there's one gentleman who will come on and be like, you've been on TikTok for a while, I think it's time to go to bed, good night, he's gonna be here tomorrow. And he has saved me multiple nights because yes, I'm like, I'm just gonna go check what my friend's doing, and then an hour later yes, I love funny videos though. I'm all for like comedy, I love dog videos, so that's what I'm scrolling through usually. And I get pretty sucked in. But yeah, especially on social media, I think setting clear boundaries for yourself and being okay, like stepping away for a little bit, have some fresh air, some time, but then setting intentions as well. So like today I'm going to go in with this intention, like I want to do this good thing today, or I want to add to the world in this way. And it's okay to waste some time. I think it's great leisure, but finding balance, I think, is difficult. So
yes. I mean, it's hard. It's difficult. We're all still learning. Yeah. We're all addicted to our phones. And they keep upgrading them and making them cooler and making us more addicted.
But then, I mean, you think about all the incredible things that have come from as well. And the people who have been found because of TikTok, because of Instagram, like, thank heavens they posted something and we now have their content in the world, and like they have a platform to be able to share their voice in. I think there's the good and the bad and the questionable, and like it's everything.
I mean, a whole musical was produced because of TikTok.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Many more musicals will be produced because of TikTok.
Yes. No, I'm so grateful for Bridgerton the musical.
Right.
So grateful. Like Ratatouille was so good. Just I have a friend who's creating, I don't know if he's still doing it, Onward the musical.
Oh.
And I became TikTok famous because of a video, because I sang, he casted me as the mom in Onward. And he's like, can you sing this song for me? And I was like, yeah, I'll make this video for you. And then when he finally posted it, he's like, overnight we caught fire. And I was like, that's cool. I don't know what TikTok is. I don't have TikTok. He's like, you should probably get it.
Like, I'll download it. Now addicted. So speaking of social media, before I get to the last question I have, where can people follow you on social media?
I have a TikTok, which only has 3 videos.
It's okay.
So don't follow me there. Now, if you want to, good content will appear. That's Belén Moyano, because I like Pikachu. I wanted to add shoe in the middle. And then I have Instagram is a great place to connect with me, which is Belencita Moyano. And then I have a website, which is my name, Belén Moyano. So look me up.
Perfect. And I'll put the links in the description, and I'll put everything in the lower thirds of the video.
Beautiful.
Lastly, I saw on your website, you do a lot. You do a lot for activism. Is there anything you want to promote or talk about that's not theater related?
Yeah, thank you. A friend and I started this organization during the pandemic called Edify Justice Advocates. The two of us experienced some tragic, we would say, racial profiling at a previous job. And we quit from that job, and that got us together. And she had this idea of putting together a 5-step workshop to help white allies be able to tell stories in a way that would advocate for minority groups and individuals who are not heard. So this program came about. It kind of caught fire as well. We now have a partnership with NYU. We have a partnership with other organizations. We work with the Broadway Advocacy Coalition. We work with different Broadway shows, educational institutions, and we provide this service to these organizations. We do this 5-step workshop process. I am producing our podcast that is also sharing of the incredible work that has been done in high schools, within casting offices in New York City. We're like delving into different, we call them pods. So we do our educational pod, our musical theater pod, our business pod. And we already have 2 episodes out, so we're in the process of that. But yeah, that's Edify Justice Advocates, and we now have a sister organization that's called the Harriet Tubman Effect Institute. We're starting to create a curriculum in NYU for individuals who want to get a master's degree in how to become advocates, essentially, and how to be the best advocates they can be. So that's all there. I'm happy to send you all that info.
Wow.
But that's in the process. It's been one of the most joyous things I've done in a long time. And tour has been fun, but it's taken me away from that a little bit. So I'm starting to be like, I need to get myself back in now that rehearsals are done.
Like double tasking.
Yeah, but it's been such a gift to be able to share my experiences and to create something with someone who is just mind-blowing, incredible. Her name's Nicole Johnson. She's beyond. She's incredible. So
you said it caught fire so casually, and then you're like, yeah, like NYU, Broadway Coalition, and I'm like, no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. I know. It's funny because I'm not in charge of partnerships. Like that's very much Nicole's thing. She's very into like creating those connections, and I'm just the person who's literally making things. She's like, I need this thing. And I'm like, let's do it. Like, let's take it together. So I'm in charge of curriculum. So I help design and create the workshop that we have available. We're now in the process of making one specifically for people of color, because we found that the one that we created is great for white allies, but we need to nourish our own community. So we're in the process of that as well. Yeah, and it's been so cool. I've met so many like incredible people. Oh, and in our most recent podcast, we interviewed Gavin Creel. He's on it. So we're here and there and everywhere.
And I'll have to put the links in the description as well. So perfect. I'm watching, look for that.
I'll send you that.
Yes. Thank you. I mean, that's huge. So you're just like, who have we partnered with today?
I know, yes.
Every day. And she's just like casually like, here, let me tell you.
I know. And we have so many amazing people that work in this thing that we created now, that I'm just in awe of what they do and the people that it has attracted. Like that, I think that I've always been a little more like, I'm good. Like it takes, once we build something and people see that they can add to it, a lot like Hadestown, I guess, it just takes flight, and you can just be like, I'm grateful that I put a part of me out there that is now helping other people.
Yes, you're making that changing the world and spreading important messages in both your show and in real life.
Trying.
I mean, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk on my interview series.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a gift, and it's so good to meet you. And I honestly, please let me know when you see the tour. Yes.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.